All right. So thank you all for joining me today for this webinar on simplifying the utility network model. So over the past year, Esri has made several updates in response to customer feedback. So many organizations found the original utility network model a little bit overwhelming, particularly when migrating from the geometric network. We've kind of had a similar response with our clients. As a result, Esri has introduced some new tools and improved models to simplify the process and make it easier for users to get started. So today we'll walk through those changes, explore the redesigned foundation solutions, and review Esri's newly released simplified utility network migration tool. I'll also demonstrate key features to help you better understand these updates. So let's dive in. Before we take a look at the changes, I just wanted to take a minute to kind of review the utility network model itself. So the utility network is designed to model the real world more accurately and in a way that better supports utility management tasks. So this model is more flexible, scalable, and detailed, providing us with a more powerful framework to manage complex systems. And at its core, the utility network is made up of the structure network and the domain network. So our structure network represents supporting infrastructure like poles and vaults and cabinets. And the domain network represents the utility-specific elements such as water, gas, electric, or telecom. Within the domain network, we have some important components. So we have tier groups and tiers, which allow us to organize the network hierarchically. Tiers can represent different levels or regions of your network, whether you're organizing by pressure zones or circuits or something else. And then we have subnetworks, which are essentially logical divisions in the network that help manage connectivity, tracing, and analysis. The utility network is made up of several layers that represent different aspects of your system. So we have in the domain network things like devices. So we have valves and meters or assemblies, which represent groupings of devices that work together. Junctions, which represent connection points in the network where elements come together. And then we have our structure network. So structure junctions are things like manholes, and structure lines would be things like casings. And then in addition to those, we have those spatial features. We also have non-spatial objects like controllers, switches, and fiber strands, which may not have a physical location on the map, but are still crucial for modeling the functionality of the network. So taking that a step further, with these layers, we can break things down even more specifically into asset groups and asset types. For example, the devices layer, you might have an asset group called flow valves. And within that group, you'll define several asset types like air gap, altitude, and check valves. The structured breakdown allows us to be more precise in how we represent each element in the system. One of the key innovations of the utility network is its approach to connectivity. So unlike traditional models where connectivity was more implicit, the utility network uses 3 types of connectivity rules to define how elements in the network interact. So we have our junction edge rule, which connects junction to edges, similar to a gravity main to a controllable valve. We have our edge junction edge, which connects multiple edges to a junction, going from above ground to below ground. Our junction junction, which links 2 junctions together, so a pipe fitting to a manhole channel. And these rules ensure that the network behaves as expected when we trace or analyze it. We also have associations, which define the relationship between different features in the network. So we have connectivity associations, which are connectivity between 2 features that aren't necessarily coincident, like our junction-junction. We have containment, which allow for a collection of features to be represented as a single point. So, a sewer main inside of a casing or a lift station, a pump inside of a lift station. We have structural associations, which model associations between the structural and domain network, like a transformer bank to a power pole. And lastly, we have our subnetworks. So these are fundamentals to how the utility network works because they control network connectivity, ensure that tracing operations are accurate. Some subnetworks are essential for things like managing power flow or tracing water distribution or modeling gas pressure zones. They allow you to logically partition the network so that you can isolate and analyze specific parts of your system. So now that we've covered the fundamentals, let's talk about some of the important changes Esri's made recently to improve the utility network adoption process. So in response to the customer feedback, Esri redesigned its foundation solutions to help you get started faster and more effectively. So let's first talk about the solution redesign and the ArcGIS Pro project. So Esri made some changes here by removing the individual publishing, editing, viewing, and audit maps. So those maps were part of the previous foundation solution, but now they've been replaced with a single asset type map. From here, you'll build out your own maps for editing and web mapping. Next, Esri added an additional model called the Essentials Data Model. The new Essentials model is a simplified version designed to provide a faster and easier starting point. It focuses on fewer asset groups, asset types, and fields. And this makes it a great option if you're just getting started and don't want to be overwhelmed by complexity. We'll take a deeper look at this model, how it's structured, and how it aligns with your utility system shortly. Another significant change is the improved migration process. So Esri has introduced some new migration tools within the utility network data management toolbox. So these tools are designed to simplify the migration from your current system to the utility network so you can transition more smoothly. And finally, Esri has migrated the documentation from tasks to the online help. So providing more accessible and up-to-date resources for users. Along with this, there's also a new data dictionary that uses the Generate Schema Report tool. So this data dictionary is available in both Excel and HTML formats, and we'll take a look at that during the demo. So let's talk about the Essentials model versus the expanded model. So the Essentials model offers a streamlined, simplified starting point. It includes fewer asset groups and asset types and fields, as well as a reduced number of tiers. The simplified structure is designed to help you get up and running faster without feeling overwhelmed. And it's a great choice if you're just starting out with the utility network and need something less complex. On the other hand, the expanded model provides a comprehensive solution with more detailed configurations and additional capabilities. It's ideal for more complex utility systems that require advanced functionality and flexibility. So most organizations are going to likely find themselves somewhere in the middle. So you may start with the essential model and then extend it as your needs grow, or you may start with the expanded model and reduce complexity where possible. The choice really depends on your specific requirements and how comfortable you are with the utility network. So let's look at some of the schema changes in the essential model. With a simplified approach, like we mentioned before, the asset groups and asset types have been reduced. So the asset groups are now streamlined to only include the very most essential concepts or components, meaning that you won't have as many options to configure, but then this can help avoid complexity and speed up your implementation time. Similarly, the asset types have also been pared down to make the model more manageable. When it comes to fields, there are some key fields in the essential model that are required in order for the utility network to function. So that's things like life cycle status, construction status, asset ID, normal status, operable. And then there are some excluded fields. So these are not included in the essentials. So you can look to whether you need these fields and add them in yourself, or maybe you don't need them. And those are fields like owned by, maintained by, install date, spatial source, and spatial confidence, just to name a few. So where to start? So we kind of covered what the essentials are and what the expanded models are. So let's talk about where you would start. So if you're just getting your feet wet with the utility network, or you need a simple model to begin with, the essentials model is a great starting point. It's simplified, so it's easy to understand and get up and running quickly. However, if you know you need more advanced functionality, such as tiers that aren't available in the essential model, or if you're planning on doing 3D modeling, then starting with the expanded model would be the way to go. So just keep in mind that the expanded model is a little more complex, and the transition to this model may involve more configuration and setup. Speaking about the 3D modeling, I did just want to make a quick note that most of my examples today will be from the water, but in sewer, the manholes have been moved from the structure network to the domain network. So that takes away the ability to model that in 3D, because essentially if your lines, your mains will connect directly to the manholes now, and if they're at different Z values, you won't have the connectivity. That's not to say that that couldn't be added later, but that's a harder thing to add back into the essentials model. So in addition to the essentials model, as we're talking about, simplifying things, this was just recently brought to my attention, this new utility network migration tool set. So this just came out fairly recently. And this tool is available for download in ArcGIS Pro 3.3, and it will be included in ArcGIS Pro 3.5. And this offers an even simpler approach for organizations looking to transition to the utility network. So unlike the essentials and expanded model, this tool creates a utility network based on your existing GIS data without relying on the predefined models. It maps your current feature classes, fields, and relationships and annotations directly into the utility network model. The resulting model is intentionally simple and designed to support just very basic editing and tracing workflows. While it doesn't include advanced capabilities like associations or network diagrams right away, these features can be added progressively as needed. Later this year, Esri is going to be releasing a wizard interface for this tool that's going to make it even easier for organizations to migrate from the geometric network. Then I just wanted to highlight a couple additional tools. So we have this Attribute Assistant Toolbox. This new tool is available as a download right now. Helps users that are unfamiliar with Arcade write essential attribute rules. So Esri is in the current essentials model, we're missing we get validation attribute rules for the migration process, but we are missing the connectivity rules like generate ID and the symbol rotation. So those would have to be created and added in. So this tool makes it easier for those who are new to Arcade to be able to create functional and automated workflows. So this just helped. They took the basic functionality that was available in the old Attribute Assistant and added those as kind of the foundational tools inside of this toolbox. And then another kind of cool tool here is the Network Copy Workbook. So that comes with the Create Utility Network Copy Workbook and the Apply Utility Network Copy Workbook. And when we see it in the demo, well, this allows us to essentially copy an asset type or an asset group from any asset package to another asset package. So this is going to allow us, and when we do that, we're copying, rules, and we're copying, all the properties of that. So this is kind of cool from, moving from, one, model to another. You can move something from the electric into a feature from the electric into the water. So this is just kind of a neat tool. I haven't had a chance to use it yet, but did just find it and wanted to make everyone aware. So now we're going to hop into a couple brief demos. Let's start out with our essentials. So this is what you'll see when you open the Water Utility Network Essentials. Here we have a singular project, a singular map. And then it's going to look a lot, if you've ever seen the foundation before, it's going to look a lot like the editor map where you can see your different subtypes here. Now I've already put my data into the asset package, but we'll go ahead and take a look at what this has. So we have the map. It's also going to come with the Water Essentials asset package. So before, the foundation also came with an asset package, but it also came with a sample utility network database, so that's not included anymore. And then we have this utility data management support. So got a lot of great tools in here, some reporting tools, other data management tools. But what we're going to kind of be focusing on today is the data migration toolbox here. And we're going to look at creating the simple data mapping and then creating the migration workspace. But before we did that, I did want to show the new data dictionary. So for anybody that's run this report, so I've run this, not related to the utility network, but just to, get a high level overview of, different databases. It provides, domains and, relationship classes. I will say though, it is a little bit of getting used to the navigation part of this. If you were ever used to using the old data dictionary, it does take a little bit of getting used to, but it provides a lot of good information. So I'm just going to kind of walk through. So we start here. We're at our table of contents. We have some summaries of, the different feature classes, subtypes. we can scroll down and we have clickable links that can, take us and navigate us through the different worksheets. So let's say we wanted to go to the water device. And here we have the same thing. We have a little table of contents for each sheet. And let's say we wanted to know what subtypes are available in the devices. So we can click down here. We can scroll down a little bit. And so now I can see I've got flow valves and system valves. Here we have a description if we're maybe wondering, what exactly is a flow valve? And then maybe we want to know, like, well, what are the different asset types that are available to me? So similar to, Excel, we can, other Excel workbooks, we can filter these. So we can go in here. Normally we could go in here. For some reason, my Excel workbook is not working. All right, well, we'll just go down to our service valve. Normally that filter would work. Of course, since I am doing a live webinar, it is not working. We can click here on the asset type. And I can see that I have two asset types that are included with this. We have the backflow valve and the service valve. And then I could similarly get back by either just clicking on the service valve name, or maybe I want to, head back over here to the water device. I can click on this to get myself back to maybe I want to go check something out in the water line. And then a quick hack here, if you hold control, you can navigate through large worksheets, scrolling here and get back to the beginning where you can click on your table of contents. All right, so let's jump in and take a look at this Create Simple Data Mapping tool. So we'll start by filling out some of the parameters. So the first thing it asks for is my source data. So here I'm going to navigate to the data that I want to migrate. So for the asset package, there is some things that you have to do, similar to, how the foundation always was. And this is that I mentioned, let's scroll up here, that it came with this asset package. So I do need to clear this out and change the spatial reference of it to match my data. So I did have to upload essentially the UN tools that are available as a package. So if we go over here to our toolbox, you can see that I have added in the utility network package tools. And there is a tool under asset package called change asset package spatial reference. So I use this tool to clear out the asset package, creates a new asset package with the spatial reference of my choice. That is going to be this asset package right here. So back to the tool. So again, we'll just really quick set the source. I'm going to choose my asset package. We'll choose an output location. Give it a name. I'm just going to call this test because I have already run this tool. I didn't want to take up anybody's time with running with the geoprocessing. I like to leave this checked. This counts all the features. It's kind of nice. We'll take a look at that when we look at the workbook that this produces, but we can get a feature count. So that way, if we have anything that's maybe a 0 count, we don't have to worry about migrating those. This is the parameter that I am most excited about. So this allows you to kind of parse out a field that might have, multiple, asset types inside of it. So for example, I have network structures here in my original data. And if I go to my fields, I have a field called structure type, and I have various structure types that make this up. So what this is going to do is this is going to break those down in my workbook and allow me to create additional asset types or map those asset types to existing ones. So we'll take a look at that later, but we're essentially going to create this table here. I've already created it. So you would just click on this, it would create this table down here. And then when we open it up, I'm just going to put the name of my field that I want in here. And so I did this similarly. I did this to water. I knew right away that my water, I would want broken up into distribution and transmission. So I just created a water type field and did that, for this example as well. So that's what you would put there. And then you would just choose this table. And then you would go ahead and hit run. And the result looks like this table right here. So this, I have already filled this out. This is pre-filled out for you. The blue is going to be blank, and you're going to have to fill that out yourself. But we have our source feature data set. We have whether it's a point line or polygon, what the class name is, and here's that row count I was telling you about. It's nice, kind of shows me, how many of each feature that I have. And then here we have our source definition query. So it's breaking that up. So I see my main type equals distribution transmission, and then these are all the different structure types that I have. Over here, now I'm familiar with the data dictionary, so I already know, where these should be mapped to, but those are things, if you're new to the utility network, you use your data dictionary to kind of explore where your data might fit. So these are drop downs here, so you can, choose, I know casing is a structure line. And here it's similar to kind of your contingent values. They'll be filtered as you go, as whatever choice you make. And then what I'm excited about is this new asset type field. So here's my broken down structure types. And so I was just, for most of them, I was just mapping them to where they go. But let's just look at this air relief pit. So I decided, okay, that's going to go in the water device. And inside of the water device, we just have, we have pressure valve. And then the only asset type available is pressure reducing. So I choose that and give this a name. And what's going to happen is it's going to take all of the properties and all the settings from this pressure reducing. And basically as a template, it's going to create me a new asset type. And then for anybody that's created custom asset types before, there's so many different places that you have to remember to add those customizations, whether that's, setting the subnetwork definition or terminal configurations. So this just kind of takes that, that part out. So similar to that tool that I talked about where you can copy from one asset package to another. This takes out all of the kind of overhead of having to remember where everything is and take all the time out to set those. So you're going to save this once you fill everything out. And then the next tool that we're going to use is the Create Migration Workspace. So this is very similar to those of you that have used the data loading tools to creating that data loading tools workspace. So what we're going to do here is we're going to choose our data or source data again, and we're going to choose our same asset package. This time we're going to grab our data mapping spreadsheet that we just filled out. And then we're going to choose our service territory polygon. So the service territory polygon, for those of you that aren't familiar, that is what it says. It is generating a polygon around our service area. And we want to make sure that that's sufficiently large in size to include any areas that might be future annexations or, build outs for your utilities, because that needs to, that's the boundary for the utility network. So I have a polygon already to use inside of my source data. And then we're going to give that an output location and an output name. And then this copy fields can be used. So I'll just explain that it will take all of your fields from your data and it will move those into the data loading workspace. So the utility network was initially designed to use a single field across, multiple subtypes. So for example, like design type, that might be different. That's the same field name, but it might be different for each subtype to kind of avoid having tons and tons of attributes that might hinder performance. So if you have, hundreds of attributes, and that, those all get populated into your utility network, that can have a lot of overhead. So we might want to be careful as to what we bring over. So maybe we want to take a look at that beforehand, to determine what fields we actually need, what fields are in the utility network that we can already use. So for this purpose, I'm not going to check that box. I do usually check this. So sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong, but I'll check it and then just make any modifications. And then the rest of these, they are optional. And then you're going to click run. And what that's going to create is a data loading workspace and a second asset package. So the second asset package, it's creating this because it's making those modifications that we did in the data mapping workbook. So let's just take a look at what that looks like. So in my first asset package that I had, if we go to the domains, we'll look at that pressure valve here. So you can see all that's here is the pressure reducing valve. But when I ran that, my second asset package now contains my air release valve with the code number added in there for me, with all of the properties and connectivity rules already added, so I do not have to worry about that. In addition, it has created a data loading workspace. And so what that looks like is another Excel spreadsheet. So if you're familiar with the data loading tools, this might look very familiar to you. For those of you that maybe haven't seen it before, I'm going to just go ahead and click on this, and it's going to try to fill these out. This is kind of that one-to-one relationship. This is the target data. This is your data. Just kind of explain briefly what this is doing. So this is mapping for something like normally open here. My data has it in a different format than the target data, and this is going to allow me to map that. So the lookup sheet is going to be normally open, lookup keys, I'm going to use that, normally open for that, and then this is the domain for the utility network. And if I click on that sheet, this is populated for me. This is my values. This is what I grabbed from a different worksheet, where I am now going to transform that from false and true to closed and open. So then you'll save this and you'll go through and do that. Enabled true, that means it's going to, when you do execute the data load, it's going to load that, whether or not you want to maintain attachments or preserve the global IDs. Once you're done with that, you're going to go and you're going to use the data loading tools, which are now part of, they used to be a separate install similar to the utility network migration tools, but now they are available under, here we go, data management, data loading tools. So you're going to load the data using the workspace, and all you're going to do here is navigate to that Excel spreadsheet we were just in, and it is going to load your data in similar to this. So that is just a quick brief overview there, and I do want to jump in really quick to take a look at that new tool that just came out. So I was in Pro 3.4. I had to be in 3.3, so I'm on another workspace here. So this again was a download for 3.3. It comes with these three tools here. The one that we're interested in is migrating to the utility network. So we'll open that up, and it's going to ask us for that service territory, which we talked about the previous demo. It's going to ask us for an output folder. The settings, I'm going to leave this as the current utility network version. I'm going to give my utility network a name, a data set name, and the database name. And then these options, I'm going to leave load data and merge fields. And then I'm also going to decide that I want to include my attachments. Then we're going to go down here and we're going to start our mapping. So first we need to create the domain. So for, we talked about the domain earlier in that review. So we're talking water, gas, electric. So I'm going to add water here. And then we need to determine, is it a source or a sink? So we know the water network is taking water from, it's a source. It's coming from the treatment plant to folks' houses, and it's hierarchical. So next, after we do that, we're going to do our network mapping. So we're going to choose our source class. So we'll just do a couple here. So I'm going to choose casing, which I know is a structure line. Now, there is no relation here to the predefined asset groups. It's simply just taking the name of my layer there. And then I'm going to leave this. So this asset type field is very similar to that source field that we looked at where it can break things down. So we'll look at what that looks like when we add our structure. Oops. Another one. So let's go ahead and pick the network structures. That's going to be water devices. It's named it for me. So now I'm going to go here and find my structure type. And so I'm also going to check this. So is controller. So this is going to decide whether or not features in this source class can be used as a subnetwork controller. So I'm going to check that for this because I know I have treatment in that in this feature class. So then I would continue on to add all the rest of my layers. Similarly, we can then add standalone classes. So I have some abandoned mains that I want to add. So I'm going to grab those, add those to the tool, and then I'm going to run it. And the output is what you're seeing here on the screen. It creates that data loading workspace behind the scenes there. Very briefly, this is what this looks like. So very similar, except for it's all that one-to-one. These are all of the fields that came in with it, your own fields. And then I did play around a little bit with this Analyze Network Data tool that allows you to input your new utility network. We can set default resolution actions, like what, whether or not, we're going to delete the first or, make no changes at all. And what that resulted in is this analysis layer. So here I've got, mostly I just have missing junctions. They have some charts available for you. This error resolutions table. So this kind of gives you an idea of what the error type is. So missing junction, mid-end, and then we can scroll over a little further and these are those default actions. And then, you can edit this and, change that. So do nothing, update all but first. Those are your options here. And then that last tool in there allows you to apply your error resolutions. So that is just a basic, quick, I just wanted to try this tool out. I just want to see how easy it was. It was pretty easy. I have not played around with the network itself to take a look at functionality or tracing, but it was very easy to get my utility network quickly in there. And I'm going to, we do have some references here. So this is the link to that attribute assistant download. And then we have the blog about the tool we just looked at. And then this is the Esri, we have some Esri help documentation as well. So that is all I have.